Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first and very special episode of the Good Touch for a Big Lad podcast. Now, today we have a very special guest, someone who has amassed over 1 million followers across all social media platforms, someone who I've personally followed for a while, being a Liverpool fan. We are joined today by LeoGoals. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to talk.
Thank you. So, firstly, what inspired you to create Liverpool goals and Leo's goals? What inspired you to create
Mm.
those?
Yeah, I think kind of in a similar spot to where you are, probably what you're doing with this podcast as well. It's just like this natural, passion and desire to share what you love, and for me it's because I was really far away from Liverpool for a long time. I was based in New York for 10 years. So all of my kind of growing up, I was just seeing, Liverpool from a distance, and I had so much passion that I wanted to, communicate to others and connect with others. But in the US, it's just like not it. Like at that time, especially, like now in 10 years, it's unbelievable how much the sport has grown. But back then, like really nobody in my school cared about football. Like it just wasn't what, kids cared about. So I really turned to Instagram, and it was just this thing of like wanting to connect with others and trying to see, like other fans. And a lot of it I would say was probably fans from around the world. And then it became more UK as I was based back in Europe. But yeah, I think it was just this natural inkling of wanting to meet other Reds and share that passion because I couldn't do it physically, really.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? Obviously, Instagram is one of them things, and social media in general, it has a
Yeah.
lot of flaws, but it's one of them where it's so powerful if it's done right. And obviously,
Mm.
it's fair to say you've done it absolutely perfectly. So, what did you do before Liverpool goals? For people who don't know, obviously, I'm quite clued up on it, but what have you sort of delved into before Liverpool goals and Leo's
Mm.
goals?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Liverpool goals I started when I was 12, so it's not like I was doing much. But I would say that like connecting with people is just something I've always loved because I lived in three countries growing up. I lived in France, Iceland, and then the US. So I always kind of struggled, I guess, to connect in some ways, and that was something I always like desired because I sometimes felt like the outsider, especially as a kid, because I would go into schools where wouldn't speak the language for a few months, like when I did make those transitions. So football really was that thing where I could not know the language and still connect with others, and sport in general, I guess. And that's why it became a bigger and bigger passion as I grew and moved between places. And then yeah, in that time I also did internships at clubs like NYCFC. So that's like yeah, in the MLS, then also PSG, different things like that. But I never felt the same passion as Liverpool, so it was extra motivation whenever I did work in the industry, in the sports industry, which is always what I wanted to do. I was always like, nah, I gotta push harder the Liverpool angle because that's really what I care about. And I don't want to find myself in a place where I'm doing like graphics for PSG when I don't care about the results or what the team's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, like you said, you've touched on PSG and that sort of thing. I think you did. I think you were a media intern at PSG. Now, obviously, that must have been still incredible to obviously do. But like you say,
Yeah.
it's quite nothing. There's nothing quite like being connected to your club and being affiliated with your club and its fans, is there?
Yeah.
So obviously, you've been a Liverpool fan pretty much all your life. Now, what would you say your earliest memory of Liverpool Football Club is?
So the thing is, it was definitely like in Iceland. That's when I started supporting the club because my best friend there, one of my best friends, he showed me like cassette tapes of Stevie, and that's really the reason why I started to like feel that desire to follow the team. And that's the thing. It's not necessarily like again we watched like the Istanbul moment is definitely one that I remembered, and then I would say oddly enough, it wasn't necessarily watching the games because we didn't have it on TV. So it was more actually like match attack cards, weirdly enough, was the biggest thing. Like I remember as a kid, like all we would ever do was we would sell things on the street. Like you kids in Iceland, they're allowed to do like tambola, which is like you just sell like things you don't want to use anymore on the street. So, like clothes you don't use, toys or whatever. So we would sell that with friends. And then whatever money we would make, we would literally spend on candy or match attack cards. We would go straight to the shop after like the day's work of trying to sell stuff. And I remember match attack cards. I only wanted this like special Stevie card, which had 101 defense, 101 attack. because he's just the most complete midfielder. And that was him in his prime. I would say it was like 2006, 2007, 2008. And I remember like Match Attack was really the way the passion like was at that time, because again I couldn't really watch a YouTube. I didn't have access to YouTube, so it was literally just like going to school and trading cards with other classmates and just like seeing how big of a collection I could get of the Liverpool cards.
Yeah, I was the same. I mean, I remember
Yeah,
that Stevie G card, and I was looking back a few years ago, and I was just thinking, like, obviously, there's a bit of sort of obviously nostalgia plays a massive part in it, and
yeah,
obviously, I still think though that nowadays, if I was to collect Mash Tax cards, I'd still enjoy it, but obviously, you can't enjoy it as much as you would back then when you used to be
yeah,
collecting them and trading them with friends and that sort of thing. That was probably one thing that I feel connected a lot of people, whether you're from the UK, you're from America, you're from
yeah,
anywhere in Europe. I feel like that was always one thing that people always used to bond over, and I feel like that's one thing that this generation, certainly my generation, your generation, um, people do tend to look back on with fond memories,
yeah,
and nowadays it's just not quite the same. But who
yeah,
for you would you say that obviously you've told me that Steven Gerrard was obviously, I mean, everyone's favourite. He's obviously
yeah.
my favourite player and the reason I got into football.
Wow.
Outside of Liverpool Football Club, who would you say made you fall in love with football?
Definitely Thierry Henry. Thierry Henry, because I'm half French,
Yeah,
and yeah, just the way he played and the passion and the things he would do on the pitch. Like often, I would like it just felt like he was on the playground. You know what I mean? Like he made certain things look easy. And now,
yeah,
even today, I gotta say, out of all the pundits, I know probably it's a nostalgia part of me, but I think he's the best pundit. And I
I
say
agree.
that because I mean, yeah, I'm curious to hear who you think is the best pundit, but I just love when he's doing analysis. He has a way of doing it so seriously, where he's so into the tactics and showing. Like I saw he was explaining Mbappe's goal. I think it was yesterday, the one after Real Sociedad, and the way he explained it, he's so concentrated and like wanting to give a full analysis. So he's taking it really serious, but then at the same time he'll crack jokes and just like not take it too serious. He knows that fine line. And but yeah, I think just the joy he would bring to every football fan, Thierry Henry, and then he came to New York, and I got to meet him in real life too, and that was like, and he was the nicest person, like he was the nicest in person too. That it felt like it all came around. It wasn't just like on the TV type of thing.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with the Thierry Henry stance. I mean, he
Yeah,
is obviously a sublime footballer, but his punditry is one that it doesn't get talked about
mm,
because of how good he was as a footballer. But
yeah,
for me, Thierry Henry is by far the best pundit, and then a
really,
second to that, it's a bit of a less traditional one. And for someone doing sports journalism like me, I probably
yeah,
shouldn't appreciate it as much as I do in terms of from a journalistic aspect. But for
yeah,
me, Daniel Sturridge is superb at what he does, even though it's less traditional.
yeah. So would you say wait out? So outside of TT of Thierry Henry, you would say your favorite pundit is Sturridge,
I think
like the one
so.
you're
I think
most
the way
excited to
that
see.
he analyzes and breaks
Mm,
down forwards and their play specifically, obviously, there's not many better in the business at analysing it than Henri. But I think Sturridge does such a good job of breaking down the way that players move, the way that they
yeah.
need to run, that sort
Mm.
of thing, the intelligence side of it, and the IQ that he's got that he then puts forward to us behind the screen. I think is superb. And Henri's just, yeah, he's in a class of his own, isn't he? Really?
Yeah. And I feel like Sturridge too is the same as Henri and Michael Richards, for example, where they have that thing of also just not taking it too serious. And at the end of the day, like football is not the most serious thing in life, so they know that fine balance. You know what I mean? Of obviously they know how much everyone loves the game, but at the same time, it is in life or death. I know Bill Shakley, I think, has a quote where it's like
Yeah.
football is about life and death, but at the end of the day, it isn't really. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, it's exactly. Um, I think obviously as well is you get the sort of the Roy Keanes of the world who are sort of
Yeah.
stern and more serious. And don't get me wrong, I think Roy Keane's a very good pundit, but
Yeah. Me
I
too.
think sometimes you do need you need a breath of fresh air. And I think, as you said, Richards, Omri, Carragher on CBS. I think Carragher on CBS is almost a different character to how he is on
Yeah.
Sky. To be
Yeah.
honest, I
I
think it's
agree. Yeah.
it's really interesting to see how that dynamic
Yeah.
works. But I do really enjoy sort of the range of it, and obviously everyone's got a different style. You have to appreciate that, and I do think. But when I think it comes down to it, I think Omri and Sturridge are absolutely superb. Now, obviously, speaking about the football industry, obviously I'm involved in
Yeah,
it. You're involved in it.
yeah.
What would you say is the end goal for you in the football industry?
So the main reason why I started Leo's goals, because but I never really like it does didn't feel natural in the beginning. Like what I liked about Liverpool goals is that I didn't have to put a face to it, and that was nice because you didn't get all the hate comments and all that stuff. But
Yeah,
the main reason why I decided to start this avenue is because, yeah, I think the goal is really to be able to produce documentaries, football documentaries on YouTube. And I do think that it's really hard to grow that in a traditional sense where you're putting out a documentary every, I don't know, every month, and because it takes longer to make. But like that's really what I'm most passionate about. Like I love documentaries in general, not just about sport, but it's just sport. It's something I know more about and have spent more time around. But yeah, the dream would be able to build like a big enough platform on YouTube where basically the stuff that I'm currently doing can happen because that's something you can consistently do and it can bring in some income potentially. And then on top of it, to be able to have the resources to produce documentaries that are more in depth, that are less time sensitive, where it's like, oh, look at the latest match, like put out the vlog an hour after the game, like that stuff I enjoy a lot less. Like basically stuff where it's like right after it happens, you have to be the first one to it. And if you're not, like it'll kill your mental health because you see the numbers declining, all that stuff. I would love to be able to do something where it's like, yeah, a documentary telling a story maybe that is less known, but doing it in a way that's more modern to the new generation of viewers that are looking on YouTube, for example. And and yeah, I just think YouTube can be a platform where you can do quite a lot. You don't have to always follow the traditional sense. I feel like,
I
yeah,
completely agree. I think obviously the sort of I'm sure you'll be aware, obviously, being a huge fan of Liverpool Football Club, you love documentaries, you love that side of it.
mm.
I think that's one thing that I find really admirable about the Anfield Wrap. Now,
Oh
obviously,
yeah,
their Jurgen documentary it's second to none, absolutely sublime, and it's one of them where the amount of time and effort and resources and money that you have to put in to get that is it's incredible. But it's once you grow to that point, there's no one can touch you. And obviously, what you're doing is incredible already. I mean, 120,000 subscribers on YouTube is no joke. It's incredible, and obviously, it's only going up and going up. And obviously, this year is one of them years where Liverpool Football Club is again. It's back on the map. It's on everyone's
yeah,
lips. There's no stopping at the moment.
mm,
Everyone wants a piece of that pie. Everyone wants to talk about it. But obviously, you've got a really good. I personally feel anyway, from the outside looking in, you've got a really good foothold of the fan base, and you've got a really good position that you're in. Obviously, a lot of people will be interested in Liverpool. A lot of the traditional media, that the
mm,
newspapers and the Sky, the BBC of the world, they'll sort of be interested in Liverpool, and then wait until next season when there's maybe a little fall off with manager changes and that sort of thing, and they'll
yeah,
be waiting for that downfall. Whereas you've got this loyal fan base that's only going to keep growing, because at the end of the day, your content is very positive. Like
mm,
let's be, obviously you're a very humble person, but um, I personally think that looking in anywhere, I think that the content is so positive and it's putting a really good light on it. And obviously, like you say, growing that community of people from wherever. You could be from Europe, you could be from
yeah,
Asia, South
yeah.
America,
That's
even
the beauty.
Antarctica if you really want to.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's one of them where
yeah,
obviously,
love.
no matter what happens next season, you're going to have that growth and that steady growth. If Liverpool go on to win trophies next season with the new manager, then
Mm,
that's content that you can then put out, focus, and grow the audience. So I think it's only up for the channel, to be quite honest with you. And obviously, all the
mm,
social media comes with that, doesn't it? Um, so, you know, I think when I look at your content, obviously you're, like you said, you need to be first to things. You need to be on
yeah,
it. You need to be on
yeah,
topic, on trend, time sensitive, all of this sort of
yeah,
thing. And obviously, it's tough. So, what
mm,
does an average match day look like for you? Is it extremely busy? Is it
yeah.
non-stop? Because I can imagine it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, so something I've been doing more recently is watch alongs, so live watch alongs for the games, and I've really enjoyed that because I would be watching the games anyways, and be switched on, because whether it be for Liverpool goals or like finding stories around the game, whatever it may be, I was already switched on, and now it's just so much more fun because I basically get to still do that, but watch it with other people. And so I've like
Yeah,
really loved that. Like I've only really started doing that for the past 5 6 months maybe, and that's actually made the like watching so much more fun, because often you see like the same people in the building, so it's almost like you're like, honestly, it's almost like you're watching it at a bar, because I feel the energy of just everyone that's like consistently there, and that is something that's made match days so much more fun, like so much more fun. Because before, I would never actually really go to bars and watch it, because again, like you said, it's quite busy. We're like throughout the day we're preparing, whether it be lineup graphics, like again stories, what to tell at halftime. There's just lots of things to prepare. And so at a bar it's hard, because often there might not be connection, or you're drinking, or you get distracted, you know what I mean? And it's not really, yeah, you kind of have to be switched on. But the lives I've just loved, because it's been like I'm doing that anyways, but here I get to just do it with more people. So like I've really loved that side of it. But yeah, like you said, I think for the future, the goal is really to think about, how to keep that going, but maybe a little less, where it's always just like you see, like predicted line, like all this stuff where it's like always being put out, and trying to find a way to, it's hard though, but yeah, trying to find a way to make things interesting when it's not just the thing in the moment, but like storytelling in a way where it's like in 6 months' time, you'd still be interested. And that's why, for example, match day vlogs, I've done some of them, and I don't love it, because there's something about it that doesn't feel quite natural, where it's very much like that's what's popular out there, that's what everyone's
yeah.
doing, you're guaranteed to do pretty well with it. But I gotta be honest, when I'm in the stadium and I'm like have the camera like facing the camera the entire time, there's a part of me that's just like not enjoying the game as much. And it's such a
Yeah,
privilege, to be like, I know from like from Reds just wanting to see Liverpool play all over the world, it's such a privilege that to do that. There's something about it that doesn't feel quite right. So that's why I'm trying to
yeah.
find a way, like how can you create content around games and around what's going on, but in a way where it's not like let's do it, maximize like every second, because like that's what's popular, I guess.
It's one of them as well. Like obviously, I've tried it as well
Mm,
at Anfield, and I
yeah.
can't. I really do struggle. It's one of them where
Yeah.
I find myself going there, and like you say, you can't enjoy the game as much. The emotions, I feel like you want to be there in the moment. You want to be enjoying it, and at the end of the day, you want to go absolutely crazy when a goal goes in. And I feel like with a camera, you can, but
Yeah.
it there's a side of it that almost feels not forced, but sort of, like you've got to be over exuberant
Mm,
and sort of play up to the cameras. And there's nothing better than being at the football and just hugging the mate next to you, and you've scored a
yeah.
goal, you go absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
talk, and even before the game, it's a whole thing. If you go to the game and vlog, now I've tried it, like I say, at Anfield, it doesn't work. It
Mm,
works when I've been to other games. For example, I've been to like West Brom versus Leicester this season, and that
yeah.
was fine because I don't support either side. I've
Right.
just gone to that game as someone who's got a passion for football,
Mm,
and it's fine there because I don't care if West Brom score. I don't care if Leicester score. I'm just there
mm.
because I love
On
that
a good
game.
football
And
match. Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like it's one of them where if you go to Anfield, you speak to the bloke. You don't know the person, but you can speak to the bloke or the family next to you and get a
Mm,
conversation with them before the game, at half time, at full time before they go. And I feel like with a camera, you obviously it feels so awkward to do that, and it
yeah.
doesn't feel right. And it's like you
Mm,
see it all the time on Twitter, social media, with when fans are at games, a goal goes in or a penalty or a free kick's taken, and people are just ready, pointing, ready for that goal to go in, ready for that moment. Obviously, if you don't go to the game, you love
yeah.
seeing it on social media. You want to
Yeah.
experience that from
Yeah.
home. But
Yeah.
if you're at the game, if someone's in front of you with their camera out when a penalty's being taken, it's so the most frustrating thing, and
It's bad,
it's
but
so.
I'm not gonna say
Oh,
anything because I do it. That's the problem. But yeah,
but
I
it's
agree
one of
though.
them where
That's it's
it's
true.
like you have you obviously you want to have their memories, but also you're going to look back on it eventually. People will look back on it and think, I wish I'd maybe say you go to Manchester City Liverpool this weekend,
Mm,
a goal goes in, Salah equalises or Salah scores and the winner.
Yeah.
or Nunes comes on and scores the winner, or whatever it may be, you're that's a moment that could be a season defining moment to win
Mm.
the league. It's like
Yeah.
the Manchester United game in 2019-20. Everyone knew that they won the league that night. I personally felt that anyway. Um, I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like if that's the
Mm.
case on Sunday, it's just one of them where we're crying out for the atmosphere to be
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
feral. It's got
Yeah.
to be
Yeah. It will be.
incredible.
It will be.
And it will be, and it's
No
one of
doubt.
them games where people will look back on it in a few years and think, "Oh, I wish I hadn't had my phone out at that goal or at that moment, at that penalty, at that free kick." But
Yeah.
it's one of them where also I think it's great for everyone sitting at home, for people like myself who can't always get to the games because either it's too expensive or
Yeah.
I can't get a ticket in the ballot or that sort of thing. Or obviously
Yeah.
for you living in Europe and sort of being having to experience it from further away. But also, I
Mm.
think I've done a lot of the watch alongs previously as well on TikTok and that sort of thing,
Yeah.
TikTok lives. And like you say, it's a great community for people who can't go to the games, people who can't get there, and you can
Yeah.
also always experience that. And I think your emotion is one thing that I really do admire about your content specifically is your emotion comes through whether you're at the game or not.
Mm.
And a lot of people will force a reaction for the goal, but yours is pure. You can tell, especially with the Nunes winner the other day. I mean, it's the most one of the most emotive videos you'll see on TikTok. It's incredible, and especially it's one of them where if you're not at the game, your type of content, your platform, and your community is absolutely vital in that. I personally feel.
Mm.
Um,
Thank you.
now, no,
But
of course, of course. So I'm going to ask you. It's a put you a bit on the spot, but we're going to do a little game. Okay, we've got a little game. So I've got a five-a-side team. Blank.
ooh.
You've got an unlimited check. Five-a-side. Now it's not just any five-a-side because we've got to add something a bit different to this. We can't
Okay.
make it standard and boring. So
Okay.
I'm going to
Okay.
hold up a shirt, and
Okay.
all I want you to do is to tell me. No goalkeeper, obviously. I don't have a goalkeeper shirt here at the moment, but we'll go centre backs or however you want to do it. And I'm going to hold up five shirts, and I just want you to tell me the player that comes to your head very first
Ooh,
when
I
you
like it.
think of that shirt. Okay.
Yes.
So with the first shirt, which I personally feel it's a very rare shirt, but I'm very happy to have it. It's
Ooh.
this one.
Ooh. This makes me miss New Balance. This makes me miss New Balance.
Oh,
But
honestly,
yeah, is it the first player that comes to your mind though, or is it if you could pick any player
it's
that's played in that shirt?
if you can pick any player that's played in this shirt,
I think Daniel Sturridge. We were talking about him before. We were talking
I
about him
like him.
before. I could just see it.
Mine, honestly, my first thought is either Daniel Sturridge or it's that Naby Keita goal against
Ooh.
Southampton.
Yeah.
I remember that. And then so we've got Daniel Sturridge in the team, and then we've got this shirt.
Oh, feel I just think directly Coutinho, and he would be incredible in a five-a-side too. Imagine
Oh
Coutinho
my
on the
god!
ball. He has a low sense of gravity too. Like you couldn't get the ball off of him. Yeah, but I'm also thinking
No
Bobby
way.
now. Are you also thinking Bobby?
Ooh. Yeah, I was thinking. I always think of Bobby and Coutinho with that shirt, and then the rogue one. But there's a very specific goal. The reason why I do think this is the Oxlade Chamberlain goal against was it
Oh
Maribor? Yeah, in the 7-0 win.
yes.
Oxlade Chamberlain against Maribor. I always think of that. Now this one is probably my personal favourite in the last. I'd say 10 years, probably.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that one. That's probably also, although this one, though our current one, I think will become a classic too. But
I agree.
yeah, when I see this, I immediately think Bobby Firmino because I just think that's his
That
prime. But then
Champions League
also,
campaign.
yeah, but then also, wasn't it also Salah's like season where he put up the most
Salah's
numbers?
first
It's
season.
2017,
Yes.
2018, right? Is that the
Yep.
one? Yeah. So,
And I do with this shirt. I've got a lot
oh,
of. It's the number 19 on it as well.
oh,
When he had
so
the number 19.
oh, see, this is it's sad how underrated Saudio is because, like, when you think about that season, for example, you think about Bobby just because he was a magician on the pitch, and then
Yeah.
Salah for the numbers, and that's what I feel so much for Saudio. It's like when we look back, he was such a world class player for us, but it's so hard when you have those two. Not saying that they're better than him, like it's impossible to compare, but it's like
Yeah.
there's something about a player who just scores a lot of goals, which is Salah, and there's something about a player like
It's
Bobby who
just
just is a magician, you know. And Saudi was kind of a mix of both. I feel like
Yeah, I agree. It's that season. I mean, in that season, you'd think of the moments. I mean, Firmino, I think he had 11 goals and 12 assists in the Champions League
in
that
the
whole
Champions
season,
League.
which is insane. But that season as well, obviously, Mane scored some huge goals. He scored the one in the top corner against City at home. He scored against Real Madrid in the final of the Champions League. I mean, he scored some massive goals. Yet he's one of them players that when I
I
look at that
know.
shirt, I still do think of Bobby and Mo before him. It's crazy, really. Now,
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a different one here. Now, there is a reason for this one. Now, I'm sure you'll recognise the shirt. It's not a Liverpool shirt this time either. It's a Barcelona shirt. This shirt.
Mm,
Now, this
I
obviously holds a lot of memories for Liverpool fans. Not great ones from the home leg, but the away leg
mm.
obviously was massive. Now, there's a reason I pulled this shirt out because of that. Now,
See,
who comes to mind first when you see that shirt?
I mean, Barcelona for me forever will be like any shirt in the Messi era. It has to be him, just because he was such a magician. But something I want to mention, because you showed Suarez, what I didn't quite understand is when Suarez scored, in that home first leg when they won 3-0, he celebrated against us, right? I didn't
He
understand why
went
Liverpool
crazy.
fans were so mad at that, when that's his character. Like he is like a crazy, like he's kind of like Darwin, where he's just like out of control in some ways, and he's just gonna like fully live the emotion. And I think that's, maybe it's easy now looking back because we came back in the second leg, but I remember in the moment being like, I do love him for that. Like when he played for Liverpool, I love that part of his game where it's like he's so good technically, but he also is like a playground player. You know what I mean? He looks like he's just giving everything all the time, and even in his celebrations, you know what I mean? And like you can't fault him for that. Like,
Yeah,
did you
exactly. I
remember if
mean,
that annoyed you when he celebrated?
like I, I saw it and I was just like, I mean, firstly, he was only here for he wasn't here for a long time, really.
Yeah,
Personally, in my opinion, as much as there's a lot of players in this squad that I deem the best I've ever seen in that position in my
yeah,
lifetime.
yeah.
Suarez for me is in that season. I just feel that he is the best player I've still ever seen in terms of
Me too.
a forward for us. Now I understand that Mo that sounds like I'm discrediting Mo, but Suarez is for me the best player of this generation, in my opinion. Um, and I've I just couldn't hate it. I couldn't hate it because when he's scoring against he's getting stick every week against teams we were playing against. Norwich used to hate playing against him. Teams used to just come and hound Suarez because they knew that
Yeah.
they could try and wind him up. But he'd go and score and then go crazy in front of their fans. Like the David Moyes one sticks out for me personally.
Oh,
It's one of them where
the dive.
David Moyes is coming out in the media, called him a diver. He goes and dives in front of him. That is peak Suarez.
Unbelievable. No, I just, I love, and that's why I think not to say that Darwin is on his level or that they're similar players, because that's just too, like it's not true. But what I do love about Darwin is that aspect too, where eh, it's so hard to tell what's going to happen next. Like it really, like I think every Liverpool fan, he's become a fan favorite, even if probably he hasn't hit the strides that we think he can. But I think it's that part where every game he just gives absolutely everything, and we have no idea
Exactly.
what's coming. And there's a part of that that's just so fun and exhilarating as a fan.
This is it. I feel I feel from an outsider's perspective. I've spoken to a lot of my friends, and
Mm,
they really don't understand it. They don't understand how much and why
yeah,
people like love Darwin as much as they
yeah,
do. I mean, let's not, let's not. I think he's been hard done by this season because of the amount of times he's missed by the media
mm,
and the narrative that's around him is for me. I don't agree with because
yeah,
obviously he's got 14 goals and 11 assists this season. Now, them numbers for if Haaland had them numbers, or if 11 would be going absolutely crazy.
yeah,
But for some reason, because it's Darwin, they focus on the chances missed and the hit the woodwork stats, and it doesn't sit right with me, to be honest.
Mm.
It
Yeah,
really
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. No, I mean, there's still, I think, a big part of his game that he does need to improve, but he'll be fully aware. Like, there's been many moments this season. Let's be real, like Luton away, for example, where it's chances he has to score. But then at the same time, it's true. Look at Erling Haaland when he missed that chance against United. He, thankfully enough, he has brilliant players in his team like Phil Foden who are gonna, save him at the end of the day. And then after
Exactly,
the game, actually, he was asked about that miss, and he said, no matter how good I'll become, he said that's not gonna be the last. Like, he's fully aware that no matter how good you are, you're gonna miss, a lot of big chances. But
exactly.
yeah, I mean,
When you get as many chances as he does, you're not going. If imagine if he's converted eighty
every
percent of them. Imagine how
be
many
the
goals he'd have. Like it's not. I don't understand how people can not love him from an outsider's perspective. I really
mm,
don't, because he has attitude. His application is superb.
yeah,
He can. Not to say that he's similar to Drogba in any way. I wouldn't say he's a
yeah,
powerhouse, but he can he can cause a whole back four to be worried no matter where he is, whether he's
mm,
off the left, whether he's down the middle, whether he drifts out to the right, which we've seen against Everton and stuff like that. He's sort of drifted.
yeah,
Now, he can just control that back four and sort of let them know that if you mess up once, I'm on you and I'm pressing you and I'm there. I'm intense in every action that I do. And I feel like that's one thing that I loved about Suarez is all of his quality, of course, but my word, could he work hard?
No, he was one of those players where it felt like the effort he put in on the pitch was like it could be his last game of his career, and that's how much he gave. And I remember there's this story from pretty early on in his Liverpool career where he like he I forget what it was exactly. Oh yeah, sorry. So he had like an injury with his ankle, something twisted ankle or something with his ankle, and he wanted to play so bad that he wore like a size two sizes bigger or something to be able to literally fit into the boot, and he would still play. And that's the thing about him. Like, I feel like in this generation it's more rare to see players like that will just like play no matter what. And like, really, when you define like a beast, I think I would really like, in terms of someone that just absolutely gives everything no matter what. But then it's not just that, it's his ability. He could score a goal from anywhere. And I even think for his time at Barca, you look at some of his stats, like, I think he's so underrated. Like, I think from 2010 to the 2010s period, I think he was the best striker in the world from 2010 to 2020, for example. Like, I know there was
I agree.
Lewandowski and there were others, but like, I don't think Lewandowski in his prime. I know he scored 5 goals in however many minutes, was it 12 minutes or something? But like, Suarez was just so like he could do everything. There was nothing he couldn't do. Like,
Exactly.
joke.
I think as well, people don't give Suarez enough credit for obviously his hard work, but his speed as well. Obviously, now people will look at him into Miami and think, oh well, but he's 30. Well, I don't know how old he is, but he's very old, and I
Mm,
think he's 36 or 37,
mm.
like, his speed at that time he was electric. And I always say that I know it's obviously going on a bit of a tangent, but I could speak about Suarez all day. I
Me
mean,
too.
his even when he played for Barcelona, I mean, I've always preferred Barcelona over Real Madrid anyway.
Mm.
But Barcelona, when I watched him against PSG in the neon green kit, nutmeg David Luiz,
Yes,
there's
I
no
remember.
reason for him. There is no reason for him to stick that ball in the top right corner when he's 1-on-1. He doesn't have to do it,
Exactly.
but he just
Exactly.
chooses to do it.
Oh my
He
god.
just sums up Suarez.
Nah, he's yeah, it's crazy to say, but definitely like Suarez is a big sorry, Salah is definitely a bigger legend. I would even say Saudio's a bigger legend, Bobby's a bigger
I
legend,
agree.
but who's the best player I've ever seen? 100% Suarez. It's not, there's no doubt in my mind, and that's crazy to say because Salah, I know now Erling Haaland's broken the record, but that season Salah broke the record for the most Premier League goals. I
Hmm.
still would I still think Suarez was better. Like,
I agree. I agree. Now the final shirt, obviously, to complete this team is last season's home shirt.
Last season, you know, we're oddly enough the first player I think of last season, and I think because last season was a difficult season, my mind goes to positivity, and I think of Stefan Bajetic. I think of Stefan Bajetic because he was a
That's yeah,
shining light. He was a shining. I know he's been injured for a long time now, but I remember there was no positivity, and he came through, and he was our best midfielder. And I just thought, whoa, this kid is gonna be like a Pedri. He's gonna be like a Gavi. He's gonna like like he's unbelievable. And then he's just been so unlucky with injuries. But no, otherwise, definitely I would have to say Bobby just because his final season
I
have
agree.
to be,
That's the one I
have to
think
be.
of every time.
Yeah,
I had to get a Bobby shirt towards the end of last season because it's just an absolute joke how he left on such a sour note. Really, it was such a and we didn't give him the send off that he really did deserve with the performances on the pitch. Because I
mm,
mean, another one that's one of them things to probably conclude the podcast. Sort of
yeah,
speak about is so For me, last season was superb whenever he played. Like his
yeah,
level was so
yeah,
high. I mean, the amount
yeah,
of goals he actually scored last season was
mm,
very, very
yeah,
underrated. But he just couldn't stay fit, and it was so sad.
yeah. And I don't know if you read his book, but I recently read his book. This one, have you read
Yeah,
it?
I've read that.
This one,
Yes,
and I really loved it. Like I loved it because obviously it's really well written, and he had like a ghost right. He had a writer help him. There's no doubt about that. But what I loved about it is how like it really didn't try to sugarcoat. Like a lot of what he said in it was not just like, oh look, it's all highs. Like just looking back on the trophies, like it really like he opened up on a lot of moments that were difficult in his career. A lot of moments where he wasn't sure where things were headed. Like like I respect that because I just feel like I've read so many athletes like autobiographies where they look back and it's just like anecdotes that basically don't go into their personality or any vulnerable moments in their life, wh- which
yeah,
which no matter like even Messi, who seems to be this like perfect character who's never gone in trouble, who's never this and that. I'm sure there's so many things we could learn about his life behind the scenes where it was very, very, very difficult, but we just don't know
exactly.
because he hasn't shared that. Everyone has those low moments, and what I love about Bobby is it's like he really shared all of those in his book, and I think that's what like you love about him. It's the fact that when he was on the pitch for us, he was another one of those where it just felt like every single game you could see what a privilege it was for him to be a Liverpool player. Like you could see it in the way he played, and
Yeah,
he just understood how much it meant to play for the club, and that is so massive. Not only is he so talented, but I think having players like that in your team is so important because it's probably pretty easy to forget what Liverpool means in this day and age. You know what I mean? Just because players now have these agents, they have this big entourage around them, and it's like you can probably get so distracted by just like everything that's going on within the world, and so to at the end of the day say what a privilege it is to just play football and just to be able to focus on that. It felt like with him, he never forgot that, and I think it's
yeah,
harder than we think it is because from the outside we're all like, oh, these athletes are so lucky, they earn millions, they get to just play football, they get to do this, but I don't think we understand the magnitude of pressure they're under, the magnitude, all the difficult things that come with it. I mean, just look at like Marcus Rashford. You see his goal against City, and you're like, whoa, this kid is could be the most talented English footballer. But it's
yeah.
not that simple. It's not that
No,
simple.
exactly. I
Like,
completely agree.
yeah.
So the final thing I just wanted to sort of ask you, obviously, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. Now, I've got two predictions that I'm going to need from you today. Now, obviously, the one for tonight and then one for the massive game on Sunday.
I think tonight is gonna be really tough from what I've heard. Like I've been trying to because I haven't watched Sparta Praha obviously this season. You know what I mean? And I went actually to the other European aways, and what's really difficult, and you could feel it from being at the ground for Sparta Praha. This is like their game of this of the century almost. Like you, like all these teams you've seen, like when they get drawn to face Liverpool, like all the teams will celebrate. Like to them, this is like their Champions League final. And what's
Yeah,
tough is like we're so tired. Whether it be that game that went to the 99th minute, playing against City on Sunday, like the games are nonstop for us, and so we can't look at tonight and treat it like a Champions League final like they will. You know what I mean? And that part of it, and yeah, that part of it is so hard because it's like they're going to be giving every ounce of their body. While let's be real, if even if I picture myself, we talked about the privilege of being a Liverpool player. I have my eye on the City game too. You just have to. I think all of us fans do too. So I wouldn't be surprised if tonight is a negative result. But I think it's also, we know Anfield is coming the other way. You know what I mean? So I think my prediction is 2-2 for tonight.
okay,
2-2.
I agree.
We cannot underestimate them. And yeah, like I said, everyone says they're a tough team. And then this weekend, I'm optimistic. I'm super optimistic just because I think if the fans are up for it, and I think they really will be like, I'm I really think like that's why, like with Liverpool goals, for example, I want to share like things about getting to the ground early, all these things, because if we think about it being Klopp and Pep's last ever rivalry, how could you not be more excited than that when you think about it? It's literally the last time, and I think it's going to be probably the most intense rivalry we'll ever see in the Premier League. Like that, it was just unbelievable all these years, and of course, we want to end on a high, you know what I mean? And it's kind of in our, like when you think about it being at Anfield, it's kind of in our hands. Like we can make the atmosphere so intense, like like that Champions League night where we beat them 3-0. We can do that again, you know? And I literally was
Hmm.
speaking to James. Do you know JSM? James, who's a City fan?
Yes.
Yeah. I was speaking to him and he's going to Anfield on Sunday. And I told him if we have that type of atmosphere, like a Champions League night, and we make it insufferable for them, he even thinks it's a straight loss coming because Anfield, when it's up for it, is the best place in the world, you know. And we just got to make sure that happens. If that happens, I'm confident of a win. I don't like to give actual scores, but I think the only job from us, because we can't do it as fans, is how can we make it unsufferable? How can we make it so that they feel like they can't breathe when they set foot on that grass at Anfield. That's what we need to do. And then the team, we know how much they're willing to, like, look at the how much we've been giving this season, even with the injury crisis, everything else. I think that's just what we need to focus on. And Klopp too. How can Klopp make sure that every fan that's in the city of Liverpool and just around the world can bring whatever energy we could bring to Anfield to make sure again that they're not on their game, because we've seen that you can
Yeah,
get at the city side. Look at United in the first half; they did a darn good job, and we're talking about United here, so we could do it, you know.
I
But what
think
do you think?
so. I
Do
think
you
so.
like to give
I
score
said this
predictions?
to um I, d- I don't hate giving them. I normally just
Okay.
go for a win or a loss. Or
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
for me, I'm gonna go. If I had to give score predictions, I'll go 2-2 against.
Oh,
Uh,
I got scared.
oh
I
yeah,
thought
I'll
you
go
said
2-2
2-2
tonight.
for Sunday. I thought you were saying,
No, 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 no. I'll go 2-2 tonight, and I'll go. I'm gonna go 2-0 Sunday. 2-0.
wow, wow.
I think if there's one attack in the world that can get at this City team and one team and one stadium in a one-off game to get at Manchester City, I'd back us 9 times out of 10.
100%. And I think it was Kara that said it on Monday Night Football. You know, this Monday they were looking at like the three horse race and how like we definitely can't underestimate Arsenal. But Kara was looking at the City game this weekend, and for him, he said a draw will be like a loss, and I agree. I think we can't think of a draw just because this City team, I would not be surprised. Like this is gonna be, there's 11 games left. So after that, this game this weekend, we'll all have 10 games left. Legitimately
Yeah,
would not be surprised if they win 10. I'm not even like, that's just like, now they have a fully healthy squad apart from Grealish. And yeah, I think we have to think of it like, if we don't beat them, it's it's gonna be difficult, you know.
Yeah, it's going to
But
be
I like
really
that
tough.
part of it.
I think, yeah, same. I like that aspect, and I think when you look at, if you had to put pressure on it in players, if you look at players who can perform under pressure, I think I think Liverpool and Manchester City. I mean, Liverpool have proven it thousands of times, but
Yeah,
I think Liverpool and Manchester City are the two that could really handle it in that last 10 games more than Arsenal. I understand people shouldn't underestimate them, but I'd still. We've been there and we've dealt with it before, and I still think that there's I just want to believe that there's a perfect ending for Jurgen Klopp, and I'm pretty confident that it could be.
I hope so. I hope so.
I hope so. But I think that's all the questions. So thank you very much, Leo, for coming
Thank
on. I
you,
very much
Connor, for
appreciate
having
it.
me
Obviously, it's
on.
been a really good interview. It's been really nice to speak to you. Obviously, see your opinions and hear how passionate you are about everything you do and how excited you are for the weekend and tonight's game. So thank you very much for being on
No,
here. I
thank
really
you.
do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to see how you get on with this show because this is only the start, right?
It
Yeah.
is.